So we're here today in Mary Margaret's kitchen. It's a rainy, gloomy, miserable day, so like many of you, when the weather is horrible, it's a fun day to spend in the kitchen experimenting, and Mary Margaret's going to talk to you about some of the different varieties of apples that we grow and what they're good for. So.
Good afternoon, and it is a rainy day, which we haven't had many of this season, so we need the moisture. You see we've got kind of an array of apples. Some are old varieties, some are new, and some kind of been around in between. We're going to start with the stamen apple. Excuse me, I'll get a paring knife here. Stamen have been around a long time. It's a good multi-purpose apple. Nice and red. Ours are really pretty this year because we had cool weather when they were coloring up, so we got nice red apples. They're a little bit bigger than normal, but they're a great size for bacon, good for pies, good for sauce, even fried apples, or a lot of people for dessert apples, especially when they mellow out a few weeks after they've been harvested. And you see I have a cutting board over here, but I have a towel on my counter. I can just bring it down and just cut it into a quarter. Notice, the flesh to a stamen is relatively white. Not all apples are. And you see the juice coming out? That means it was picked at a proper stage. It's good and ripe. And you can almost see a little bit of what they call water core, which is a sign that that's a good ripeness for a piece of fruit. It makes it sweeter and really juicy. Stamen are great for apple pies. They do hold their shape. They do cook a little bit apart, but it's a traditional apple, especially in the Carolinas, North Carolina and Virginia. We find a lot of residents from those states seek the stamen. But back to what I was going to say, it's a dessert apple when they mellow a little bit with a piece of nice sharp cheddar cheese and crackers and wine, or before you have guests, or even for dessert. So it makes a really good dessert apple. And you see how nice and crispy they are? That means they're going to stay firm whenever you decide if you want to cook with these. So this is our stamen. This is one, is called an Ida Red. Ida Red are always really big apples, and I believe they've got a bit of macinage in them. I like the Ida Red in the wintertime. They store really well. Look how white the flesh to the Ida Red is. And that is usually typical of a McIntosh strain of apple. The skin is really smooth, and I picked one off the line that had a little spot because they don't scare me away. But these are a tart apple. I'll make a wonderful apple pie. I use them a lot in the wintertime, or fried apples. I don't usually use them for baked apples so much because I like to switch them out. We have access to a lot of varieties, and we just use different kinds of apples. But this one has a really good flavor, and it keeps its shape in a pie. And the nice white color. These also probably could be used the same way as the stamen, sliced with a sharp cheddar cheese, or just sit after a dinner and so like dessert with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or a cup of nice tea. But and you can see the difference in the color of the flesh of the Ida Red and the stamen. And the flesh inside, the stamen's a little grainier than the Ida Red. This is like a smoother. Especially when you cook it, you'll notice that. Then we'll come over to this big guy, which is a Northern Spy. I didn't mean for it to rhyme, but it was kind of cute anyway. But Northern Spy is a typical, the name Northern is, and Spy, do you know, Katie?
I don't know the background.
I forget where the spy part came from, but I think it's a horticultural word maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Here's the Northern Spy. Is typically a New England apple, or Northern New York New England apple. These are really good apples for anything, back sort of in the same line as the Ida Red and the stamen. You see the skin is smoother like the Ida Red, but it's a more deep pink red, a wine red skin. And the flesh is not unlike that, but the flavors for this, and I know you say an apple is apple to apple, but believe me, all the flavors vary. And this is one of my favorites for a pie in November and December, is the Northern Spy. Make really good applesauce. Very old variety. It's been around a long time. A lot of people don't know about these because if you didn't grow up in New York and New England, you may not have ever heard about this variety, because that's another interesting thing about apple varieties. With the older ones, where you grew up is the ones you remember the most. Because I grew up in eastern North Carolina, and there are very few apple trees. A lot of the old farms had a big, what everybody called wine sap, and it may or may not have been a wine sap, but that's what we had, and that's what we used. And so Southerners like Stamen, which is a type of wine sap, or in the wine sap family, are related. And New Englanders and Northerners of the Northern Spy, and I can't think of the other varieties.
Max.
Cortlands and all the Max.
Yep.
Yeah. Ida Red may have been one of theirs too, because it's Ida Red, as we said earlier, also have Macintosh lineage. Okay, that's the older varieties. Now Shizuka, this bright, pretty green one here, is a very good apple. It's a sweeter apple. They usually come pretty big, and of course with a name like Shizuka, it's obviously has some kind of Asian connection. And I'm not well versed on, because we grow so many varieties and there's so many available, it's hard to know all the little
stories behind them.
Thanks, Katie. But these are really good to pick up and eat. I have extra country peanut butter, a snack on a rainy day like today with a cup of tea with a slice of Shizuka with some peanut butter on. It's great for mom and kids, or just me by myself with a cup of tea. And the Shizuka, I will have to show you. I fried, this is what I always, like, people ask me about fried apples, and there's multiple ways you can get them. I wanted to try the Shizuka with the skins on, because usually when I do fried apples, I do them peeled. But the skin gives you a lot of flavor, and it's obviously quicker if you don't have to peel them when you prepare them, plus the added fiber and nutrients that they offer. And what I did is just put them in this little skillet with some water and let them cook down. And then I put a little of Demerara sugar, it's a raw sugar, and which I like to do with my applesauce in the wintertime. I do chunky applesauce in the wintertime, and this type of fried apples. It just gives it a little more robust flavor, and you don't need to use as much, especially with Shizuka, because they're a sweet apple anyway. And I wanted to caramelize them, but they kind of cooked tender, but they're not too tender. As you can see, the thinner ones are soft, but the bigger ones are still firm enough that you can obviously see. So they would do well in a pie without much sugar, make really good applesauce, eat out of hand, and do some fried apples like this. So, and I did put a teeny bit of butter and salted butter, because sometimes salt helps bring up the flavor of apples, and a little bit of fresh grated nutmeg. If you want to try, Kate.
You take the first bite.
Nice. They're a little chewy without being mushy. I do like the skin flavor. It gives it a lot more texture and flavor with the skin. The skins can carry a lot of sugar and pectin.
Pectins, yeah.
The pectin that you use comes right against the skin.
That's why you want to make applesauce with the skin on.
Right, because
it helps thicken.
And it helps thicken it, because in fact pectin is what they use in jellies to make it thicken. So you don't have to stand there for half an hour and cook it until it's thick. Okay, that was the Shizuka. You can do them without the skin, but that's a good flavor there. So this is our Shizuka, which is a newer one to the United States. I don't know how long it's been. We've had Shizuka quite a while, at least 20 years, I would say. That's a nice apple to pursue. Now this apple is Crimson Topaz. It reminds me of a really old, one of the oldest apples varieties that we grow is Jonathan. Jonathan are great for anything you want to use, but they tend to go soft really quick. I mean, they have a lot shorter shelf life or storage life than some of our other varieties. But we were packing these the other day, and I kept saying, why do these Jonathan look a little more orangey? And Katie says, well, they're not Jonathan, they're Crimson Topaz. I said, well, that explains that. So our Crimson Topaz are they feel really firm to touch.
Forced to cut.
Huh?
A little bit of force to cut.
Yes, that means it's going to be good and crispy. Hear it? That's what you want to hear? It's a little bit grainy flesh, but it's crisp. And it's got initial tartness with some sweet coming in. It's a really good apple. It's new to us. I don't know how long it's been available on market.
I think it's pretty new all around.
I think so too.
It has a lot of potential.
But our trees are young, and we're finally getting some production in, so we've had enough to really kind of take to market several times. So, for the first time, I cooked Crimson Topaz. This is the way I bake apples. I leave the skins on. Number one, they have flavor and the extra fiber. Look how pretty these are. Look at the color of the red on the skins. And this is, that's really pretty. Just a little water in the bottom of the pan, a sprinkle of sugar. You can use brown sugar, white sugar,
Raw sugar.
Demerara, raw sugar. There's so many different ways. But I do like to use sugar because rather than a syrup or honey, because I think it bakes better somehow. With a sprinkle of fresh cinnamon. So for the first time, I've never had the Topaz cooked before.
Do you put butter in it?
A little bit of butter. Salted butter, because I think the salted butter gives it a little salted flavor. If you use unsalted, maybe just
a smidge.
Yeah, a smidge of butter.
Yeah. First time ever.
And the skins are fabulous. I'm impressed. This tops right up there with the Jonathan for baked apples, and Jonathan have always been my favorite. And when you do baked apples, just leave the skin on. What I did, since the bigger ones, some of the bigger ones, I quarter them and then just take the core out like this and lay around. They'll cook a little faster than a half apple. And if you won't, you know, a lot of people with baked apples like to core them out and then fill it with like brown sugar and butter, raisins, or nuts. But it will take much longer. But leave those skins on, because it not only gives it flavor, but look at how beautiful the color is.
Yeah, the color is really pretty.
It's a real nice pink there. Look at that. And they are good. Like I said, this is the first time I've cooked with the Topaz, and I'm impressed with them. Then we go to two other new varieties. We'll go to this yellow one. This is the
Suncrisp.
Suncrisp, okay, which I have done nothing with. I'm not even sure I've tasted a Suncrisp, because these are probably the first real crop we've had off of our young
Probably.
trees.
We've had a few crates worth.
And did you hear how that one? Listen to this one. Thus the name Crisp. And that's the interesting thing with a lot of these new varieties. They've listened, the cultivators, the horticulturalists have listened to customers. People want crispy apples.
Texture's 50% of the eating experience.
It is. That initial crunch, then the juice, and then the flavors develop. So I'm going to try Mr. Suncrisp, because I've never really had one before. You can give it a crunch. This is my favorite new one so far.
Topaz just took an immediate second place.
Right for bacon, but if I want peanut butter, or one to pick up and eat. This kind of reminds me of a Golden Delicious, flavor-wise, but more intense and tart.
So does it kind of remind you of a Gold Rush?
Yeah, it does.
Which is a later season apple.
Gold Rushes are a late variety for us to harvest. It's smaller typically than this, which is a nice size for a lot of people. Eat out of hand. And it's golden and it's russeted. But it does remind me a lot of the Gold Rush. That is, this is a good apple. I think this is one that our customers are going to enjoy as much as I think we're going to enjoy. Because Gold Rush has been one of our most favorite, along with Honey Crisp and the Pink Lady and Fuji. So yeah, we got another winner here, I think, with this. It's very good.
And has pretty color to it. The yellow with the orangish blush to it. It's pretty.
Yeah, so you got that. Well, you got all kinds of colors going on. Color scheme. You got the blush with the yellow and some, apple green on the side. But yeah, the flesh. Now the flesh is grainy. More similar to like the stamen and the mutsu.
Shizuka,
I mean. Which mutsu is another
they're comparable
Asian apple, which is similar to first cousin to Shizuka, I guess you could say. But yes, this is a good one, and I can imagine this being very good in a pie or a dumpling or like a grainy, chunky applesauce in the wintertime. Which in the wintertime I do applesauce like that. I do peel the apples and just cook it down. When I make applesauce in the summer, I use summer apples and leave the skins on and then run it through my food mill and strain it that way. So yes, Mr. Suncrisp is a good one. And you'll be seeing that in our markets.
Yes, this weekend.
And then we come to the last apple, which is
Crimson Crisp.
Crimson Crisp. So we've got Crimson this and Crisp that. I'm still learning these newer varieties because most of these are just coming off our young trees. Oh, isn't that pretty? And I can imagine this being not unlike the Topaz. You see how the skin kind of goes into the flesh, which, as you saw with those baked apples, how pink everything was. Color is so important to have. It's visually, when people first approach something, it's what you see first, which is important also when you cook. And then you have the chance to taste it, and then of course the first thing would be texture, whether it's soft or crisp, and then the flavors follow. So, and it's the same thing when you cook anything, if you ever get there. Some of these apples are so good they'll never get in a pan or a pot, but that's okay. Apples are good for us. But this crisp is really pretty. Look how the really dark, rich color it is.
It's a ruby red, like a genuine ruby color.
Whereas
it's beautiful.
the Topaz is an orange red with a lot of stripes. Yeah, but it makes an attractive apple. I like the stripings on the apple, gives it character. But this one is also pretty because look, you got the spots of that yellowy green along with that deep crimson burgundy red on the side. And that's the side that was out, that reached the sun. On the outside of a tree, the fruit will be more colored than if it would be on the inside. And that maybe a leaf was laying over that one.
Or a branch, yeah.
Okay, let's try him. I'm thinking about this one. Because this is a flavor I hadn't expected for some reason.
Oh, really? It's got some zing to it.
Yeah, it does. It's almost like a fizzy type.
Yeah. Like we described the Pink Lady as having like a champagne fizz, and I think of the same thing with the Crimson Crisp.
It's got some astringency to it, which would make, I bet it'd make good cider.
Ooh.
Yes. And I can see it being great for a pie. especially with a lot of cinnamon in it and some cheddar cheese on a plate with a hot piece of pie. So here's all of our apples. Now, I don't know if there's anything else, Katie. Oh, these are not all our apples.
I was going to say, these are not all of
This is just a sampler of some of the old varieties, some very traditional,
standard
popular varieties that we all like and love, and some very new ones which I think we'll get there too. I mean, I expect 20 years from now these will be the standards. Hopefully
these guys will stick around.
Or the Spy will still be here with us, because I think these are excellent apples that I would not like to see gone. And that's the thing about apples. There's so many varieties. There's something for everybody's taste. And I think that's why there are so many varieties of apples, because some people like tart apples, some people like very sweet apples, like our Candy Crisp, which we don't have a sample of. It's a sweeter apple. The Shizuka is a sweeter apple. It's also a softer apple. Grainy, tart, juicy. I mean, every variety we have offers you a little different flavor and texture for whatever taste that you. And some days you want a sweet apple, some days you want a tart apple.
Yep.
I ate Gala yesterday. I wanted something sweet. Today I will eat a little bit of all this, obviously. So, anything else, Katie, we want to?
I just think it's important to emphasize that at Kuhn Orchards and going to farmers markets, we try to grow a variety of apples that you can't necessarily find in the grocery store, something that's going to set us apart from the norm. We do grow Red Delicious and Gold Delicious and the more standard varieties, but
the Fuji and the Gala.
Exactly, but we bring the ones that we think are spectacular to market.
Like the Ida Red and the Stamen, the Northern Spy. None of the varieties that we're looking at, very few you're going to find at grocery store.
Exactly.
Which makes it even more fun to go to a farmer's market, because you're going to discover something that's fresh off the farm, direct to you, that you're not going to find at Trader Joe's or Giant
Or Wegmans
or Wegmans. Now Wegmans, sometimes they do go out on a limb.
Exactly.
Varieties, but traditionally supermarkets are not going to be able to provide, because there's so many varieties of apples. They have to limit their shelf space.
We limit our shelf space to 15 apples at the peak of our apple season, and the grocery store can carry 7 or 8 and
year-round.
And it's just hard to accommodate everything.
That brings up another topic. Really, some apples are seasonal. They should be used within a range of time, because they can become, like Gala. I mean, they keep in storage well, but Ginger Gold is one. It's more of a seasonal apple. Hellstar, I don't know if you remember, that was kind of here and gone pretty
early summer.
This year. But there are some apples that should be used in season.
Like the Jonathan.
Jonathan's a wonderful apple, but by the end of October, they become soft. And it's time to move on to the Stamen that's kept in storage. And Northern Spy are probably one also that you probably should use seasonally. Ida Reds are really good keepers. They're one of the best ones, and in fact, apple processing plants like Ida Red, because of the size and the shape and the durability of them. And I can see some of these new varieties that we're growing, the crisps, being a long-term keeper, because they're firm and crisp, and that usually gives you an idea how well they'll hold up in a storage. And these, like I said, these are a few. We've got other varieties we haven't even started picking, like our Pink Lady, Fuji. Probably next week we'll start on those. But Pink Lady and the Gold Rush are the latest ones that are harvested. And
Yorks.
Yorks and Granny Smith.
And Brayburn.
Yeah, I forgot Brayburn.
There's a lot of them still hanging on the tree.
See, we're about mid-season on our, because we have early, mid, and late season apples. So there's your variety, lots of options, and you come see us, and we have samples out, and you can just eat from one end to the other, and then when you get to the other end, it should be interesting what your palate says to go back and pick up and take home with you. A lot of people don't even taste anymore because they know exactly what they want. They come and pick up the Honey Crisp or the Fuji or the gala, and then other people like to change out things every week, especially when we have new varieties, and take it home and try it and see how it works for them. Apples are good for us. They're beautiful. They're just as pretty bowl of apples. However, I do recommend keeping them in the refrigerator. But if you're going to eat them within a couple of days, a nice bowl on the counter is a fine place to put them. But they do need to be refrigerated unless you're going to use them within a